Chapter 291, Seller and Notary in One. High probability of appearing. Klein controlled the world and made him laugh deeply.
Yes, I really don't have the potion formula for when blessed, nor will I have the means to obtain it any time soon. However, I have an incomplete formula for a sequence 4 potion. Even though it's incomplete, I think you should know its value very well. It can be exchanged for at least 10,000 gold pounds, and most of the time, you can't even buy it with money worth several times that. This is a crucial step that will lead to a human's qualitative change. So, are you interested? The spinal fluid of a dark-patterned black panther is worth between 500 and 700 pounds, and the spring of the elves' marrow crystals is between 300 and 400 pounds. I believe you'll still need to prepare an additional 9,000 pounds in cash, or an item of equal value.
Klein had long since speculated that the sequence of the sun sequence pathway, unshadowed, could be swapped with the same sequence of the sailor and reader pathways, and this conjecture had been indirectly confirmed by Mr. A's request, and in the information provided in Roselle's diary. It was even suspected to extend to the secret suppliant and spectator sequence pathways. Therefore, he believed that the incomplete formula of Unshadowed was an irresistible temptation for the hanged man, who was from the sailor pathway.
It doesn't matter if you don't have something worth 9,000 pounds for the time being. You can pay it in installments with Mr. Fool bearing witness.
Klein silently added. Currently, he was lacking the spinal fluid of a dark-patterned black panther, so he didn't mind letting the hanged man remain on credit. In any case, he didn't need to worry about the possibility of him running away.
Well, there are also latent risks. I would be at a huge disadvantage if Mr. Hangman suddenly dies.
With such an expensive deal at hand, Klein couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive.
The incomplete formula of a sequence 4 potion? An incomplete formula that leads to the path of a demigod? This is something that you can't even buy with money.
Audrey's eyes lit up. She couldn't help hiding her curiosity as she asked before the hanged man could speak.
Mr. World, can I ask which sequence 4 pathway the formula pertains to? If it's not convenient to tell me, pretend I never asked. Mr. World actually has a sequence 4 potion formula. Even if it's incomplete, it's still very shocking. No wonder Mr. Fool pulled him into the Tarot Club. He isn't a simple beyonder. Well, Shiozen 4's test mission has come to an end. Mr. Fool didn't mention if he's letting them join. Well, he must have other considerations, and maybe he needs more time to observe them. I shouldn't take the initiative to ask, since it will appear impolite.
Many thoughts ran through Audrey's mind at that moment. Miss Justice's question was just what Klein wanted. He made the world reply in a husky voice.
I was planning to say it anyway. It's the potion formula to sequence 4 of the sun pathway, unshadowed.
The sun pathway? Derrick instantly looked towards Mr. World, who sat at other end of the long bronze table, his eyes filled with sudden eagerness and longing. However, he maintained his silence because he knew that he was still far from the threshold of a demigod. He had to spend his limited resources to strengthen himself first. Only caring about the near future was the way the City of Silver operated. This was because, to its residents, there might not be any future at any moment, unshadowed. Audrey nodded gracefully, then happily said,
Thank you for your answer, Mr. World.
She felt like she had learned something important again. Unshadowed. Alger muttered slowly before calmly replying.
I'm sorry. I have no need for it.
No need for it?
Klein was taken aback. This was completely different from the script he had imagined. In his shock, he indirectly caused the world to pause, looking incredulous. It took quite a few seconds before he said,
You can first owe a portion. With Mr. Fool as witness, I believe you'll definitely make up for the rest.
No, I really have no need for it.
Alger shook his head.
No need for it. He really has no need for it. He's confident that he would gain the favor of the Church of Storms and be bestowed with the corresponding potion directly? Or does he actually have the sequence 4 potion formula to the sailor pathway? The name was Cataclysmic in Terror?
Klein quickly thought of two possibilities.
What should I do? Don't tell me that I should trade the Witch or Demoness of Pleasure formulas with him.
Klein silently mocked himself, deliberately making the world silent for a few seconds before saying,
Other potion formulas, or some secrets I know, such as secrets of the peak level sequences.
Alger changed his seating posture a little as he deliberated before answering.
I personally know some secrets of peak-level sequences. How will you guarantee that there's no overlap? How will you guarantee that the secrets you will tell me is equal in value to the dark-patterned Black Panther spinal fluid and Spring of the Elves marrow crystals?
We'll each give the peak level sequence secret to Mr. Fool and let him decide if there's any overlap and determine their values. Mr. Fool, is that all right?
Klein manipulated the world and asked himself this question. Then, he said with a supercilious attitude,
Sure.
Alger slowly nodded.
I have no problems with that. Let's begin.
I really want to know the secret of the peak level sequences, but I haven't had any extra money lately to buy it.
Audrey looked enviously at the world and the hanged man as they each conjured a piece of goatskin parchment. Having never worried about money since she was young, she finally experienced the taste of poverty. Very soon, Klein received the content written by the two members. Without a doubt, he first looked at the goatskin parchment from the hanged man and discovered that the content was simple. There was only one sentence. The peak-level sequence conceals the path to divinity.
Phew. Great. Otherwise, there would be a need to use other information for the exchange.
Klein carefully examined the world's goatskin parchment before chuckling softly.
It doesn't overlap. To most beyonders, the secrets Mr. World is providing is of no value, but in the eyes of others, it's extremely important. This cannot be measured with money.
Hearing this conclusion, Alger immediately fell into a dilemma. To him, getting two Beyonder ingredients at the same time wasn't a small burden. He had to sell many valuable items in order to trade for them. To pay such a price to hear a secret that might not be very useful to him? Alger considered it for nearly 20 seconds before saying,
Mr. Fool, can you provide more hints? I can't make a decision yet.
Can't make a decision?
The corner of Klein's mouth moved slightly. He knew that the words he had said to maintain his image had the opposite effect and had been ineffective. He hesitated for a moment and then smiled.
The content he describes is a detailed supplement to the secret you know.
Detailed supplement? A detailed supplement to the path to divinity?
Alger didn't hesitate any longer. He turned his head to look at the world and said in a terse and firm voice,
Deal.
Then he immediately added,
I'll help you exchange for the spinal fluid of a dark-patterned Black Panther and the Spring of the Elves marrow crystals within the week. Of course, the premise is that they'll appear at the pirates' meet. Although the probability is very high, we still have to believe that anything could happen. If that happens, I might have to postpone it to next week, the following week, or even the next month. But don't worry, I will keep my promise.
No problem. With Mr. Fool as witness, there's no need for me to worry.
The world answered hoarsely. After they had confirmed the transaction, Klein conjured a goatskin parchment in front of the hanged man. Alger lowered his head eagerly, reading through each word voraciously. There is a sequence 0 above sequence 1, and sequence 0 is the sequence of a true god. They can similarly be reached through the corresponding potions and rituals.
Sequence 0, the sequence of the true god. I see. I understand what it means.
Alger was astonished and shocked at first, but soon he felt relieved, and then he murmured to himself in delight. He inhaled silently and leaned back in his chair as if nothing had happened.
That secret must be astonishing. Mr. Hanged Man even lost his composure.
Audrey looked away with a longing expression and said to the son, who was diagonally opposite her,
Mr. Sun, I remember you mentioning that the City of Silver has the Dragon Pathways Sequence 9, 8, and 7 potion formulas?
Yes.
Derrick nodded honestly.
Sequence 7's potion formula is Psyche Analyst.
Audrey asked in a reserved manner,
If I wish to get it, what is the price I need to pay?
The Sequence 7 potion formula of the Sun Pathway.
Derrick replied without any hesitation. Audrey nodded gently and said,
I'll do my best to obtain it. CO and 4s mentioned before that there's a Beyonder of the Sun Pathway at Mr. A's gathering. He's at least Sequence 7 and is adept at purification and exorcism. Once all the recent events settle down, I can attempt to get it from him. In addition, I should join more of the gatherings at the abandoned education building in that hospital. I should try to come into contact with members of the psychology alchemists. One of the two paths will definitely lead to something. Thoughts flashed through Audrey's mind. But she suddenly realized that she was unable to obtain it even if she discovered clues to the formula. This was because she would be experiencing a financial crisis for the next few months and was barely holding on. The price of a Sequence 7 formula is around £800, so if I scrimp, I should be able to produce that. It's already October. It's almost New Year's. I'll be an adult then, and I'll have the freedom to handle a lot more of my money. Or should I use the knowledge I was taught by Mr. Fool to trade? I wonder what attitude he has towards this kind of behavior.
Audrey's thoughts gradually dispersed. She decided to wait until there was hope for the formula before she asked Mr. Fool. The transaction segment came to an end. Klein originally wanted to use the knowledge he knew to exchange for a mystical item without many negative effects, but after sensing how tight the hanged man was, he knew that the other party would pay a large price for those two Beyonder ingredients. It was unlikely that he had any extra assets, so he could only give up in regret. As soon as the free exchange segment began, Algier took the initiative to mention,
Vice Admiral Hurricane Kulangos's ship and crew was subdued, giving rise to a new pirate admiral.
Chapter 292, Exchanging News. Audrey was interested in the pirate admiral and asked,
What's his name? What was his current title? There hasn't been any related news in Backland.
Algier nodded slowly.
She's a lady and was a famous pirate in the past. You should have heard of Ailment Maiden Tracy, right?
Audrey shook her head in honesty.
No, I don't know much about such things.
Sitting at the end of the table, Klein added inwardly.
Me too.
Algier fell silent for 2 seconds, and without wasting any time explaining, he said,
In short, she subdued the crew of Kilangos's crew last month. She proved herself with actual action that she had the strength of a pirate admiral. She changed the name of Kilangos's ship to Black Death and calls herself Vice Admiral Ailment. In the past, she acted independently and was someone who specialized in curses, black flames, and ice. Her enemies would always suffer from sudden ailments of various kinds. At present, no one knows which pathway she belongs to, but they're certain that she's at Sequence 5.
Audrey listened with relish. She blinked her eyes and requested curiously,
Mr. Hanged Man, can you introduce the 4 pirate kings and the other 6 pirate admirals in detail? I've only heard of their names and titles, but I don't know what Beyonder powers they are equipped with.
Algier looked around and saw that both the sun and the world were showing signs of attentiveness. He nodded slightly and said,
That wouldn't be an issue. The strongest pirate king is the king of the 5 seas, Nast. He claims to be a descendant of the 4th Epoch Solomon Empire. Not only is he a high-sequence Beyonder, but he possesses the terrifying ghost ship Black Emperor, a relic of the Empire. He's adept at using order. He can pull his enemy into combat in a domain that he's best at and create fascinating effects. He's also the oldest pirate in the world. Rumor has it that he's over 100 years old, and he has been active in the 5 seas since the Roselle era. No one knows exactly how old he is. Of course, compared to the other pirate kings, there's a lot of information about him. As for the owner of Dawn, all we know is that she's a beautiful woman. She was once a warlock and is now a demigod. She calls herself Queen Mystic.
After introducing the 4 kings, Algier changed the topic to the 6 remaining pirate admirals.
The owner of the Black Tulip, Ludwell, was once a subordinate of the King of the 5 Seas. Later, he became independent and calls himself Admiral Hell. Rumor has it that he's established certain connections with the Numinous Episcopate. He's a powerful medium and can control all sorts of creatures in the spirit world. He's terrifying and odd. Rumor has it that he possesses a ring left behind from the ancient era's death. Admiral of Stars Katia was once a follower of Queen Mystic, but they've long become estranged. The reason for that, according to rumors, is because she joined a particular secret organization, angering Queen Mystic. And according to the information I know, this secret organization is the Moses Ascetic Order.
Klein suddenly thought of old Neil's loss of control and the evil god who would whisper temptations into the ears of low-sequence beyonders of the same sequence.
The Moses Ascetic Order. The Mystery Prior Pathway. The Hidden Sage.
This was the first time he learned news regarding the Moses Ascetic Order through reality instead of books. Then Alger introduced Admiral of Blood Senior, who was suspected to be non-human, Vice Admiral Deep-Sea Howl Constantine, who possessed a bloodline that was partially from sea monsters, Vice Admiral Iceberg Edwina Edwards, and Vice Admiral Dusk Bulatov Ivan. Audrey said, filled with longing,
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm beginning to yearn for the sea. I don't know when I'll be able to truly travel.
Alger calmly doused her enthusiasm.
No, Miss Justice, it's absolutely not as nice as you imagine. From my point of view, it's an amalgamation of blood, chaos, murder, desire, and horror.
Audrey nodded and switched topics.
There have been 11 serial murders in Backland recently, but one of them has been proven to be a copycat crime. The serial killings are against women who were street girls but are now working normal professions. The murderer cuts open their stomachs and removes all of their internal organs.
Alger instantly made a guess.
This sounds like something to do with devil worship. Was it done by someone from the Blood Sanctify sect?
Audrey yearned to become a detective, bringing Susie along and capturing that cursed murderer.
I don't know. The murderer hasn't been found yet.
At this moment, Derrick blurted out in a daze.
I know about such rituals.
Klein looked thoughtfully at the son, waiting for him to say more.
He knows? That's right. Before the Cataclysm, especially during the Second Epoch, devils were active in the real world where they lived on the ground. They were the object of hatred for both giants and dragons. It's normal for the City of Silver to have relevant records. Their history hasn't been tampered with, nor has there been any blanks over the generations.
Audrey asked in joy.
You know about this.
Derrick nodded.
It's mentioned in our devil studies. It's rather ancient. The devils use it as a ritual to supplement their advancement, typically used when advancing from sequence 6 to sequence 5.
Audrey asked in surprise.
It's not a ceremony to please the devil, but a ceremony for the devil to assist them in advancing?
Derrick replied very seriously.
That's right. The Abyss Pathway sequence 6 is called Devil. This is also the origin of that race's name.
Again, Klein discovered the value of the sun.
The Abyss Pathway? Before the Cataclysm, the Devil Pathway was called the Abyss Pathway, and Devil is only the name of sequence 6. Could sequence 0 be Abyss?
A lot of knowledge and mysteries were lost across the river of history, but the City of Silver still possessed them. Audrey nodded indiscernibly.
Is that so? Mr. Sun, are you aware of the actual details of the ritual?
Derrick nodded and said,
The minimum requirement is 13 and the highest is 49. The more complete the ritual, the higher the chance of advancement. Between two murders, there must be a minimum of 3 days. Otherwise, it would be easy to lose control, but the interval will also not exceed 9 days. That will cause the ritual to be reset. Every time a murder occurs and after every partial ritual, the devil will eat the victim's organs. From this point on, he'll be in a violent and bloodthirsty state, wishing to harm others until that desire is satisfied once again.
Audrey sighed from the bottom of her heart, feeling that she couldn't even bear to imagine it.
That's really scary.
Klein sat in the thick gray fog, quietly listening and remembering. After discussing the case of the serial killer, Audrey looked at Alger and organized her words.
Mr. Hangman, there's something that I've been wondering about. I've attended several Beyonder gatherings and find that very few people sell potion formulas. Even if there is one, it would be very difficult for the transaction to close. Why is this?
Alger chuckled and said,
That's because a potion formula is easy to fake, and Beyonder gatherings are relatively hidden and not too binding. Therefore, no one dares to risk their lives. Are you going to prepare 2 sets of Beyonder ingredients and conduct an experiment with animals first? That price is too high.
Audrey suddenly felt a little guilty. "4," Alger added.
Moreover, that's not the only extra cost. Animals can lose control more easily than humans after taking potions. You have to hire a few Beyonders to protect you to prevent you from dying during your experiments. So for most Beyonders, even if a formula appears, they wouldn't dare buy it.
Audrey felt even guiltier. Now, Alger didn't notice her reaction and continued.
Because of this, unless the host or a member of the gathering has the ability to appraise the authenticity of the potion formula and has already won the trust of most members, it's difficult for a formula trade to close.
Klein leaned back in his chair and muttered something to himself in silence.
Well, the old Mr. I of wisdom can. Mr. A is a shepherd, so he should be able to.
A thought flashed through Audrey's mind as she asked.
Can it be done by making an oath?
Alger chuckled.
Honorable lady, this is an underground gathering. Do you think it's suitable to make an oath in the name of one of the 7 orthodox gods? This isn't something that can be resolved with an oath. A corresponding ritual is needed. As for other evil gods or devils and mysterious existences like the hidden sage and the true creator, unless you're their believers, who would dare to swear an oath in their name? Wouldn't they be wishing death upon themselves?
At this point, he sighed.
In addition, without them knowing the acting method, potions easily lead to a loss of control, easily turning people into monsters. Furthermore, the corresponding ingredients are hard to obtain and rather expensive. Therefore, as long as the 7 churches don't allow such trades to be officially recognized, there's no need for them to deliberately control the spread of potion formulas on a wide scale, much less talk about advancement.
Audrey murmured to herself, clearing a huge question in her mind.
So that's how it is.
Klein suddenly came to a realization.
No wonder.
7 orthodox gods? Derrick really wanted to ask which 7 they were, but he ultimately held himself back. Wo Inca Forca? He thought for a moment and said,
The City of Silver has recently organized an expedition to explore deep into the darkness and found a semi-destroyed temple. The statue that's worshipped inside was a naked man nailed upside down on a cross. There were also a lot of bloodstains on its surface. Do you know which god that is?
Klein used his clown ability to control his expression to prevent the shock from showing on his face.
This is the true creator. The forsaken land of God actually has a temple of the true creator. Judging from what the Sun said, the true creator shouldn't exist before the cataclysm. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the City of Silver to not recognize it.
Justice, the Hanged Man, and the world exchanged looks, shook their heads, and said in unison,
We don't know.
Just as they finished speaking, they heard Mr. Fool in the gray fog say in a deep voice,
That's the fallen creator.
Chapter 293, Derrick's Worry.
The fallen creator?
Derrick frowned immediately. The residents of the City of Silver had always believed in the omnipotent and omniscient God, the Lord that created everything. Therefore, when he heard a similar name with the word fallen tagged to it, he couldn't help but instinctively reject and feel uncomfortable about the notion.
Fallen creator. That's the way Mr. Fool addresses the true creator. So that's the image of this evil god. But why would his statue and temple appear within the City of Silver's exploration confines? That place is suspected to be the forsaken land of God. Or perhaps, before it was abandoned by the gods, there was already the faith of the true creator. Could the holy residence that the Aurora Order always talks about be the forsaken land of God?
Many thoughts came to Alger, but he couldn't make an accurate judgment because the history before the cataclysm had long evolved into myths and legends. It couldn't simply be described as information shrouded in fog. He thought for 2 seconds and deliberately said,
We have another name for the fallen creator. It's the true creator. The faction that believes in him is in control of the Beyonder pathways, such as the Secret Suppliant, Listener, and Shadow Ascetic. The subsequent sequence includes the Shepherd you mentioned before.
Shepherd?
The silent Derrick sat up straight, his eyes filled with horror. He wasn't unfamiliar with the Beyonder pathways which the hanged man had referred to, other than some of the sequences being described with similar words in the City of Silver. For instance, the Whispered and Listener.
So that strange and evil statue represents the Secret's suppliant pathway. Elder Lovia is already a shepherd. She's been acting more and more strangely.
Derrick suddenly started to worry about the six-member council's newly advanced elder and the safety of the City of Silver. In the past, when they explored the surrounding areas, the City of Silver had found a few cities that were completely destroyed. In those places, only a few pieces of rubble had been carved with words that proved the existence of such a civilization. These words were all variations of Dragonese, Jotun, and Elvish, and most of them repetitively described one kind of existence. That existence was called Evil God. The residents of the City of Silver who was involved in the expedition were guessing that those cities were destroyed by evil gods. So after finding out that Elder Lovia's pathway was probably controlled by an evil god, how could Derrick not be shocked, worried, and terrified? He returned to his taciturn state, disappointing Audrey, who had been waiting to hear more stories about the City of Silver. After so many gatherings, after her purchase of the dragon race's intelligence, her interest towards the City of Silver had grown even more.
His reaction is a little different from what I expected.
Alger observed calmly for a while, but he failed to gain anything from it. For a moment, he couldn't find a point of entry into the conversation. And if he asked directly, he suspected that the son would request payment, which wasn't an easy task for him, since he was burdened with the debt of 2 Beyonder ingredients. It was at this moment that they simultaneously heard the sound of the table being tapped gently. Klein concealed his fatigue with the thick gray fog and said with a chuckle,
Let's end today's gathering here.
Your will is our will.
Audrey immediately stood up and curtsied with her illusory skirt. The hanged man, the sun, and the world successively replied with similar words. Klein waved his hand and severed the connection, quietly watching the blurry shadows of Miss Justice and the others disappear into thin air. Then he made his smurf, the world, disappear. Then he picked up the small badge which he had obtained from Lenavis and studied it. Klein, read the sentence, "You can join if you have this item," on the back of the badge, but realized that it didn't undergo any changes. He thought for a moment and carefully injected spirituality into it. A layer of faint light bloomed and quickly condensed into a light beam shooting out of the gray fog. However, it was repelled by the endless gray fog. The beam of light suddenly dispersed, transforming into a palm-sized piece of illusory goatskin parchment. On it was written in ancient Fasak, 4 January 1350, 8 p.m. in Bobber Valley.
A simple communication device in the field of mysticism. It sends out messages, requests synchronization, and gets the latest rendezvous time and venue.
Klein recalled the scene he had just seen and made a preliminary judgment on the use of the badge.
1350, that's next year. The Bobber Valley lies in the area before the Tussock River enters Backland. The time is precise, but the venue is vague. It's a valley that's almost 100 kilometers long. Perhaps this badge can be used as a location tool when one gets there.
Klein turned the badge over and over, with interest, trying to figure out the corresponding symbols, incantations, and characteristics to see if he could copy one himself. Unfortunately, since he was no longer part of the Nighthawks, his knowledge in mysticism was still at the same level as before. He had no opportunities of improving it further. Therefore, after studying it for a few minutes, he could only helplessly give up. As for the phrase "you can join if you have this item," Klein's plan was to not consider it for the time being.
If I can become a faceless by the end of this year, then I can head there in disguise. Otherwise, forget it.
Klein silently said to himself, Then he turned his attention to the matter of advancing to magician.
The true root and juice of the mistreat is likely in the bag with the sun. If my luck isn't too bad, I should be able to get the spinal fluid of a dark patterned black panther this week. Sequence 7, a mid-sequence. I can already see and touch it. How should a magician act?
As he thought about it, Klein began to consider specific issues. Due to his experiences before and after his death and resurrection, he instantly comprehended the true essence of clown. Therefore, in this month or so, he only needed constant acting in his daily life to gradually digest it. He didn't need to make further summaries and adjust it according to the feedback. After killing Lenavis and attaining his initial revenge, the clown potion was completely digested the moment he was laughing amid tears. This wasn't the same as the process in which Klein first digested the seer potion. It was considered a special case, and now he had to return to such a situation with the magician's acting.
The true essence of magician, to pass off the illusory with the genuine? According to what Zeratul said in the Emperor's Diary, although the main focus of this pathway isn't fate, a portion of it still belongs to it. So there must be something corresponding to it. For example, it might seem that fate can be changed to a certain extent, but in the end it turns out to all be an illusion. It's just a magic trick that fools you?
Klein rubbed his temples, then wrapped his remnant spirituality around himself and descended into the gray fog. St. George's Borough, in a 2-bedroom apartment.
Fortunately, I prepared another place like this. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know where to hide.
Fours stared into the mirror and removed her dropping hair.
That's right.
Shio replied weakly, lying in bed.
I just read in the newspaper that Lenavis is dead, but this matter involves godhood, so it won't end so soon. We have to hide for a while. No, it's you who's going to hide, not me. I'm an upright clinical doctor, the author of a bestseller.
Fours looked at herself in the mirror and began putting on simple makeup. Shio couldn't provide a rebuttal as she slowly sat up and said,
Thankfully, I was sufficiently clever and possess rich experience. When I got someone to make the report, I didn't directly say that it involved the godhood of the true creator. I only described it as seemingly very dangerous, and that the target had experienced huge changes like he was praying to evil gods. If not, I wouldn't even dare to stay in Backland. To be embroiled in high-level battles sure is troublesome and dangerous. I don't want to take on any more of Miss Audrey's missions again.
Really?
Fours asked without looking back. Shio fell silent for a few seconds and said,
Actually, there was no need for us to mention the godhood. Since Miss Audrey was able to discover this on her side, the Church of the Goddess would definitely be capable of doing so. They've most likely killed Giant, right?
I can't be sure.
Fours replied without mincing her words. Shio froze, then let out a long, slow sigh. Fours stopped what she was doing, turned her head to look at her, and said,
This mission was basically completed by you, so I won't be sharing the payment with you. There's a total of 200 pounds, so with the 70 pounds you've saved up, even if you deduct the expenses, you should be close to obtaining the first Beyonder ingredient for the sheriff potion.
But I wouldn't be able to receive the 100 pounds from the police so quickly.
Zio pursed her lips. This wasn't to say that the police wasn't willing to give the bounty money, but that she couldn't take it directly. She had to go through the friend who had helped her deliver the clues. That was the official bounty recipient. Since she believed that this matter would definitely cause a huge ruckus, she didn't have the guts to find her friend anytime soon. As for whether that friend would usurp the bounty, she was quite confident. The other party had helped too many shady bounty hunters before. It was fine to take a commission, but if he dared to directly usurp all of the bounty money, he would have already died in some unknown dark alley. Fours paused for 2 seconds and seriously asked,
But it will ultimately belong to you. When you've collected enough money, will you contact the masked guy and work for him, so that you can purchase the corresponding ingredients from him?
No, unless I can't get it anywhere else and that there's no hope.
Shio gave her answer. In Empress Borough, the opulent villa of Earl Hall. Audrey was still reminiscing over today's gathering when she suddenly saw her personal maid, Annie, coming over with a piece of paper. Annie smiled and said,
Miss, here's your telegram. It's from the east coast of Balaam.
Alfred's?
Audrey happily received it and read it carefully. Dear sister, the rainbow salamander that you asked for has arrived at Pritz Harbor last night. My orders are to deliver it to your manor in the suburbs.
Arrived last night? Then it'll be delivered to my manor as early as today and, by the latest, tomorrow.
Audrey tilted her head to the side and looked at Susie, who was fighting with her snacks. With a shallow smile, she said,
Susie, the gift I prepared for you is almost here. Woof!
Susie looked at her mistress in confusion. Chapter 294, Admiral of Stars. Ring! Ring! Klein circled the lawn behind Leopard's house a few times on the bicycle the inventor had just completed.
It's not bad. It's just as I expected. But there's no need to make a lone standing bell. The cyclist won't be able to free a hand when they encounter a situation. You can combine the bell to the handle. This will make it simpler and more adequate for situational developments.
Klein's right hand clasped the brake tight, slowing the bike down to a stop. Meanwhile, he placed the bell in his left hand back to its original spot. Leopard thought for a moment.
Yes, that's right. I was simply imitating the ringing bells of the carriages, and forgot that this is a brand new mode of transportation.
At this point, he looked at Klein, who was getting off the bike with great familiarity as he placed it on a rack.
You give me the feeling that you've ridden a similar type of transportation tool before, and you rode it very well. I'm sure all the other bikes on the market are very flawed and very different from my bike.
Sir, do you have time to learn more about bicycle sharing systems? As a clown, I should actually be able to ride a unicycle.
Klein silently lampooned before smiling.
This has nothing to do with experience. The key is outstanding balance and exercise.
He quickly changed the subject.
But based on your introduction just now, the production cost is quite high, and it's quite at odds with our product's market segment. You have to come up with a plan as soon as possible to reduce the cost, and you have to understand that nobles, magnates, and other people of the high classes of society will definitely not choose to ride their own bicycles. It would be disgraceful, and the same goes for the middle class with an annual income of £300 or higher. Our target audience are clerks, postmen, so-called working-class aristocrats, and people who earn between £70 to £300 a year.
This is just a prototype. Yay, a term invented by Emperor Roselle. It's normal to have a high cost. If the subsequent industrialization is successful, I believe it wouldn't be a problem to lower it to £6. If we can find a cheap replacement material for natural rubber, it'll be even better. That's the most expensive component.
Leopard had long considered this problem as he replied.
Unfortunately, no crude oil has been found in this world yet. I wonder if it actually exists or not. Can refined coal tar be a replacement in this aspect? I don't know about this at all. I'm neither a student of this profession nor a savant.
Klein thought for a moment and said,
If the cost can be kept below £4, we'll be rich. As for the cheap material used to replace natural rubber, you can go through Roselle's manuscript. Maybe he has some ideas.
Leopard said before he suddenly added,
Yay, speaking of which, I just remembered that there will be an Emperor Roselle memorial exhibition at the Royal Museum next week. It's organized by the Church of the God of Steam and Machinery. Rumor has it that there will be the original blueprints of Emperor Roselle's inventions and all kinds of relics.
The original invention blueprints and all kinds of relics? Klein's heart skipped a beat and pressed,
When is it exactly? I'm very interested.
From next Tuesday to next Friday, every day from 9 in the morning to 6 in the afternoon. Although Emperor Roselle was once the enemy of the kingdom, the allure of his legendary life hasn't declined because of this.
I'll take some time out of my schedule to visit the exhibition.
Klein fished out his bulging wallet and took out 2 10-pound and 2 5-pound notes.
Here's the second payment. Use it to study how to cut costs and make the most perfect application at the patent office. If you don't have a lawyer you know, I can introduce one, and the last £20 will be given to you next week to find new investors and complete the industrialization of the product. Of course, I'll also help you get in touch with people who are interested.
He had never thought of monopolizing the profits of a bicycle. First, he lacked the money for mass production, and second, he believed that he lacked the social connections needed for industrialization, promotion, and sales. He could barely do it himself or hire people to do it. It was hard work with no guarantee of success. It was even possible that he might make a loss. In that case, it would be better to bring in new investors with relevant resources and channels and let the professionals handle the professional work. More importantly, he would then have the opportunity to cash out a certain amount of shares in advance, accumulating the resources and cash that he needed to advance to Faceless. He wanted to avoid running into a situation where he encountered the ingredients but lacked the money to buy them.
Besides, I have no intention to be a bicycle tycoon. My identity is sensitive. I should stay away from things that might draw society's attention towards me before I become a Faceless. I'm acting as a magician, not a businessman or a factory owner.
Klein sighed in his heart.
I know several lawyers.
Leopard muttered and received the second round of investment funds.
Why don't you go to the bank and apply for a loan? When we get the patent, I'm sure that a bank will loan us money, like the Backlund Bank or Varvat Bank.
We're not just bringing in investors, but resourceful channels, connections, and skills. Do you understand?
Klein explained with a smile. He then put on his hat and said,
When you've applied for a patent, send me a letter. You know my address.
On the Sonia Sea stood an island with an extinct volcano. One by one, ships with masts and sails approached the shore, crowding up the reasonably sizable wharf. The sound of the pirates singing, shouting, laughing, cursing, and cheering filled the air, turning the place into a sea of revelry. The hanged man, Alger Wilson, stepped off the Blue Avenger and climbed a cliff not far away, and watched all of this in silence. With the exception of the 4 kings and the 7 pirate admirals, the rest of the pirates only received the news of the event a week ago. Most of them won't be able to arrive in time, as this will prevent the navies of the different countries and the powerful beyonders from the various churches to launch an assault. Alger watched the pirates carrying out buckets of ale without his attention on them. He knew that the Lowen Kingdom already had a new generation of ironclad warships, but he wasn't worried about meeting one here. This was because only 4 months had passed, and the advertised invincible fleet still needed more ironclad warships and different types of ships for support, as well as the time to train military officers, sailors, and gunners. There was no way they could create a combat force without a year's time. Even as Alger's thoughts drifted away, the pirates on the ships and wharf suddenly cried out in alarm. Some ran deep into the islands. Some hurriedly steered their ships away from the wharf, as if they were running from devils and the plague. In just a few minutes, the bustling scene from before was reduced to a desolate mess and silence. Alger turned his head to look at the sea and saw a ship painted black with a huge white flag with a skull hanging from its mast. The skull was pitch black, and its eye sockets burned with a ghostly blue flame. "Black Death," Alger whispered. He understood why the pirates had scurried off. Wherever Vice Admiral Ailment Tracy passed, she would leave a wake of people who got sick for no reason. Black Death approached the shore slowly as a figure wearing a white linen shirt and dark red coat appeared at the ship's bow. The figure was quite a beautiful lady, and she also exuded a heroic vibe. Her beautiful black hair was coiled up high, and she had a white scarf wrapped around her head. She wore beige pants and had a tall and slender figure, and it had no lack of elegance. What attracted the most attention was the woman's long, straight eyebrows and the sharp, bright blue eyes. As she looked around, her eyes would occasionally lose focus, making her look adrift and exceptionally alluring. A wandering poet who had mixed himself with the pirates had arrived at the edge of the cliff at some point. He began reciting.
She will always be a girl. She indeed brings ailments. Oh, I'm sick. My mind is full of her.
A number of pirates who left gathered once again as they looked at Ailment Maiden Tracy, mesmerized. Alger held back his feelings of contempt as he glanced at the pirates and scoffed inwardly.
Truly a bunch of fellows with no future or will. All they knew was hide moments ago. but now they've become seduced by her beauty. Although Ailment Maiden is indeed very beautiful, it's not to the extent that it will cause them to act this way. Oh, a beyonder power related to allurement?
As his mind was whirling, Vice Admiral Ailment Tracy left Black Death and began walking to the Black Palace deep within the island. At that moment, a huge sailboat appeared on the sea. Its flag depicted an eyelash-less eye with 10 stars surrounding it. Admiral of Stars Catalea. Alger nodded gently and muttered silently. Since the Black Death and the other ships were already docked at the wharf, the huge ship didn't approach the shore. Instead, it went around to the sheltered cliff and anchored. Soon after, the gloomy sky suddenly lit up, and bits of stellar radiance sprinkled down, condensing in the air to form a transparent long bridge. It led from the giant sailboat to the palace. A woman stepped onto the long bridge and began strolling through the air. She wore a black, classical robe with numerous symbols and magic characteristics inscribed on it. The most obvious one was a mysterious eye with no eyelashes. Hanging on this woman's waist, there was a celestial globe and a short scepter. She resembled powerful warlocks who were active in the fourth epoch according to folklore. Alger looked up and frowned slightly as he muttered in puzzlement.
That celestial globe looks familiar. It's like the strange glass bottle I previously obtained, the one I had no idea how to use. It eventually shattered after Mr. Fool pulled me into the gathering.
On the outskirts of Empress Borough, Audrey led her maids and the huge golden retriever, Susie, into her own manor.
Miss, the delivery from Enmad Harbor is just ahead.
The butler in charge of the manor said in a respectful tone.
All right.
Audrey nodded lightly and said half-jokingly to the large golden retriever beside her,
Susie, this is your present.
As they spoke, they turned a corner and saw the so-called gift. It was a giant lizard whose skin changed color depending on how the light hit it. It was 3 meters long, and its height reached Audrey's knees even with it laying on the ground. They were 2 colossal creatures, enormous enough to frighten a child.
Woof.
She turned her head to look at her mistress and saw that her expression was exactly the same as hers. Apparently, she hadn't expected the gift to be so exaggerated. Chapter 295, All Ingredients Gathered. Audrey had always had a subconscious understanding that a rainbow salamander equals the rainbow salamander's pituitary gland equals the size of one's palm. To her, it would be something soft with grooves, a beyonder ingredient which constantly changed in color. So what did that have to do with the 3-meter-long colossus in front of her? For a moment she was confused, but when she heard Susie's yelp, she snapped to her senses. She pretended to be satisfied with the result and said to the butler,
This is exactly the animal specimen I need. Just a little bigger than I thought, just a little. Take the servants and move them to the warehouse. I'll study it when I'm free.
Yes, miss.
Then the butler immediately instructed the nearby valets who were furtively looking at their mistress. Audrey looked around and, without another word, led Susie into the manor's study. Using the excuse that she had to focus on writing a return letter to her brother, she made all the maids she had brought stay outside.
After the dissection is done, there will be 2 sets of rainbow salamander pituitary glands. A portion can be used to exchange for a Farsman rabbit, just enough to concoct a bottle of the telepathist potion.
Audrey gradually recovered from her astonishment and confusion as she began to think about Susie's advancement. At that moment, she thought of a serious problem.
She had no idea if Susie had digested the potion or not. If it hasn't been completely digested, consuming the telepathist potion would easily lead to a loss of control. She isn't like a human who can endure through it. Wait, how did she endure it the first time? Besides, her current intelligence is about that of a 10-year-old child's. She's already learning words in the Loan language, and she said she wishes to read newspapers and magazines, as well as books.
Audrey fell silent for a few seconds. She glanced at the confused, large golden retriever that sat beside her.
Susie, have you completely digested the potion?
Digest?
Susie returned with clear articulation, expressing her puzzlement. Audrey had already told her that what she had taken was a potion, and she had warned her not to tell anyone and not to tell any intelligent animals that could bark or meow. Audrey nodded her head slowly and heavily.
It's a very strange and unique feeling. It feels like something illusory inside your body breaks down and fuses with your mind. You will vaguely see illusory stars one after another, and you will be one of them. These stars will attract each other in a bid to fuse as one.
Susie quietly listened to everything, then replied with a light and brisk voice.
Then I should have completely digested it. I've had a similar feeling before.
Ah? Susie has completely digested the spectator potion? But no one taught her the acting method. At most, I would occasionally remind her to observe more and remain calm.
Audrey asked in astonishment.
When did you digest it?
Last month, the month before last, or perhaps even earlier.
Susie tried her best to recall when. Seeing that her mistress's expression was getting odder and odder, she hurriedly wagged her tail and timidly added,
I don't remember. I'm just a dog. I won't purposely remember such things. Woof.
Just a dog. But you were only a little slower at digesting than me. Don't tell me that when I interact with other Beyonders. I'll say that when it comes to digesting potions, I'm a little better than a dog. Pwee, Audrey, what are you thinking?
Audrey maintained her elegant smile and politely praised.
Very good. I mean, on this matter regarding the digestion of the potion, you did very well.
Returning from Leopard's Place, Klein took a leisurely afternoon nap. But it wasn't long before he was awakened by illusory, disconcerting cries.
Mail. Is it Mr. Hanged Man or Little Sun? Is one of the final main ingredients for my potion ready?
Klein carefully tried distinguishing who for a few seconds and, soon, forgot about his anger from being awakened. He quickly got up, took 4 steps counterclockwise, and went above the gray fog. He noticed that the crimson star that symbolized the Hanged Man was contracting and expanding. Hence, he stretched out his hand, spreading his spirituality before touching it. After the usual honorary names of the Fool, the Hanged Man prayed.
I've already gathered the dark-patterned Black Panther spinal fluid and the spring of the elves' marrow crystals. Please permit me to hold a sacrificial ritual and seek your help in handing it to Mr. World.
That's pretty fast. The Hanged Man had said that there would be a grand event among the pirates soon. It seems like it's not soon, but now. He always holds back when speaking, never fully speaking the truth.
Klein nodded indiscernibly and said,
Sure.
After a simple sacrificial ritual, Alger resisted his urge to ask Mr. Fool if the celestial globe on Admiral of Stars Catalea had anything to do with him. At this moment, Klein had already forgotten about him and was admiring the 2 Beyonder ingredients on the surface of the long bronze table. The dark-patterned Black Panther spinal fluid was a seemingly translucent liquid, but if one looked carefully, they would discover that its clarity was also divided into different levels. The lower one went, the more transparent they were at distinct levels. It fully satisfied someone with an obsessive-compulsive disorder. The spring of the elves' marrow crystals was similar to a faded egg. Its shell was very thin, and it looked like it could easily shatter at a touch. Even without shaking, one could still hear the sound of swishing water inside.
I should be able to get 300 pounds and a formula clue. My magician is only short of the true root and juice of the mistrint. I wonder when Little Sun will complete the mission.
Klein waited in anticipation. As for the other supplementary ingredients, he had already bought them at various stores. For example, the droplet gem he needed to buy was purchased from a jewelry store, and he had ground it into powder. 5 grams was about 2.5 pounds. The son, Derrick, didn't keep Klein waiting long, and on Wednesday evening he whispered a prayer to the Fool that he had prepared the true root and juice of the mistrint and asked him to pass them on to the world. The mistrint's true root was heart-shaped, brown, palm-sized, and wrinkled. It looked like an old man's skin, but its back was as smooth and exquisite as a gem. It was slightly expanding and contracting, as though it had a certain amount of vitality. Its juice was light green and sparkling, making it look very delicious. Klein just looked at them, feeling a little smug. In the present day and age, Sequence 7 was the threshold of a mid-sequence Beyonder. This meant that a Beyonder would finally be able to bid farewell to the state of being only slightly stronger than ordinary people in certain aspects. They would be able to wield a relative abundance of Beyonder powers. Phew. Klein slowly exhaled, returned to his bedroom, and summoned himself to bring the Beyonder ingredients into the real world. He didn't prepare any additional vessels. He washed an iron pot in the kitchen a few times and began to concoct the potion according to the steps of handling the supplementary ingredients before handling the main ingredients. With the clown's ability at controlling his body, he quickly finished the first stage, and one by one he put in the dark patterned Black Panther's spinal fluid and the Miss Treant's true root. Sizzle! With a jarring sound, a pale white fog suddenly rose and was forcefully pulled back into the pot by an invisible force. When everything calmed down, Klein quickly poured every drop of liquid into a transparent bottle that he had prepared. That liquid was rather special. It was as if fireworks were constantly being released from within it. Red, orange, yellow, green, and other colors constantly scattered, disappeared, and then reappeared again. This was the Magician Potion. Klein stuck a coin worth 1 pound between his thumb and index finger of his left hand, flicked it up, and opened his palm to catch it. He was using divination to confirm if the potion he concocted had succeeded. Pah! The gold coin fell, its portrait faced up, indicating a positive response. Without any hesitation, Klein put away the gold coin, picked up the potion, and walked out of the kitchen. At that moment, the sky was already dark. The gas lamps in the room hadn't been lit up yet, causing the surroundings to be in complete darkness. Only the light near the oriel window created a gloomy scene. Klein sat down on the sofa and began cogitation to calm his stirring heart and dispel all of his emotions temporarily from his body. After doing all of this, he raised the glass bottle, tipped his head, and drank the Magician Potion. Gulp! Gulp! The ice-cold potion went down his throat, and at every moment it felt like countless bubbles were bursting. Klein's entire body was experiencing this stimulation, and massive amounts of information flooded his mind, blooming into fireworks. The veins on his forehead bulged, and his head felt like it was about to burst. However, this wasn't a very difficult situation for Klein to endure. The terrifying ravings before entering the gray fog and the evil roars of the true creator were much more terrifying. Hornasis, Phlegrea, Hornasis, Phlegrea, Hornasis, Phlegrea, Hornasis, Phlegrea. The ethereal temptation echoed again. Klein's head expanded and contracted repeatedly before he gradually recovered his thoughts. He began to consciously restrain his thoughts, outline the spherical light, and slowly enter a state of cogitation. After an unknown period of time, his vision recovered. At the same time, he felt an itch all over his body, with his arms feeling the worst. Klein rolled up his sleeves and was surprised to see that one of his arms was deeply wrinkled, like a centenarian. The other arm had lost its color and had become translucent. He could directly see his blood vessels, muscles, and veins.
Could it be that I had nearly lost control? No, it shouldn't be. This should be the remnant influences.
Klein sat on the sofa in the dark, leaning forward as he watched the anomaly in his arms warily, as if it were a breeding ground for monsters. And all of this had nothing to do with Klein. He sat quietly on the sofa in the darkness, watching his creased skin and the translucent state of his arms slowly recover. 5 to 6 minutes later, Klein silently sighed as everything finally returned to normal.
It's a good thing that no one came knocking on the door or ringing on the bell. I only chose to advance after completely digesting the Sequence 8 potion. With such severe effects, it would be hard for those Beyonders who depended on time to grind through the potion. It really is difficult to pass this stage. No wonder Captain took 9 years. No wonder Swain, the former captain of a mandated Punisher squad and owner of the Evil Dragon Bar, didn't dare to consume the Sequence 7 potion, Seafarer.
After sitting silently for more than 10 seconds, Klein slowly stood up. At that moment, he was already a mid-sequence beyonder. At that moment, he was already a magician.